The American Civil War, a brutal conflict from 1861 to 1865, concluded with the defeat of the Confederate States. Many expected severe consequences for Confederate leaders who had defied the Union. Yet surprisingly, most faced little to no punishment. Why did the U.S. government take such a lenient approach? This documentary explores the reasons behind this decision, focusing on political strategies, constitutional challenges, and the desire for national healing. As the war came to an end, prominent Confederate leaders, including Jefferson Davis, were captured. The question quickly arose, why weren't they held accountable for their roles in the rebellion? President Lincoln's approach played a pivotal role in shaping the fate of Confederate leaders. He believed that the end of the war offered a chance for the nation to heal, rather than pursue vengeance. His famous phrase, "with malice toward none, with charity for all," embodied his vision for a more compassionate Reconstruction. Lincoln's vision focused on swift reconciliation. He sought to reintegrate Confederate states quickly, emphasizing restored governance over retribution. This approach wasn't without controversy, especially after Lincoln's assassination in April 1865, which left his successor, Andrew Johnson, to navigate a divided political landscape. With malice toward none, with charity for all. After Lincoln's death, Johnson continued the policy of leniency, though he faced significant pressure from radical Republicans in Congress. They demanded stricter measures against ex-Confederates, particularly those at the helm of the rebellion. Yet Johnson favored amnesty and pardons, believing that punishing Confederate leaders risked reigniting tensions in the fragile post-war environment. Johnson's gamble aimed at stability, but it often backfired politically. There was a desire for justice, especially in the North, where the memories of wartime suffering were fresh. However, the risks of pursuing harsh measures were too great for the administration to ignore. Jefferson Davis was arrested shortly after the war, charged with treason, yet a trial never materialized. The challenges of prosecuting him were immense. If he were acquitted, it could set a dangerous precedent, suggesting that the Confederacy's actions were legally justified. The complexity of justice for Davis highlighted the deeper constitutional questions that plagued the post-war era. One of the most significant hurdles was the constitutional stipulation that trials must occur in the state where the crime took place. For Davis, that meant Virginia, a state where the majority of potential jurors sympathized with the Confederate cause. Securing a conviction would have been nearly impossible. Article 3 of the Constitution required that trials for crimes like treason occur in the state where the alleged offenses took place. This legal reality applied not only to Davis, but to other high-ranking Confederates, creating a situation where any attempt at prosecution could end in acquittal, potentially fueling further division. Beyond legal challenges, there was the emotional toll of prolonged punishment. The war had torn families apart, and many Americans, both in the North and South, yearned for an end to the suffering. For many, focusing on reconciliation rather than retribution was a way to ensure that the wounds of the war could begin to heal. We just wanted to heal. Families were torn apart, and there was no point in dragging it back up. The role of Confederate military leaders like Robert E. Lee further complicated the prospect of justice. Lee, who had been revered by many former Confederate soldiers, played a key role in advocating for peace and encouraging his followers to accept the Union's victory. Lee was an important figure for reconciliation. His decision to surrender and discourage further resistance helped to ease tensions between North and South. Punishing him might have incited renewed conflict, which was the last thing the Union needed. Lee's influence made him essential to the post-war peace, and many believed that harsh punishment against such figures would be counterproductive to the goal of reunifying the nation. It was a delicate balance between seeking accountability and maintaining a fragile peace. Ultimately, the decision to avoid trials was pragmatic. It wasn't about denying the horrors of the war, but recognizing that the nation couldn't afford more conflict. Johnson, Lincoln before him, and even Lee recognized that healing had to come before retribution. In the end, the reasons Confederate leaders were not punished after the Civil War reveal a blend of strategic political maneuvering, constitutional challenges, and a desire for national healing. These decisions have left a complex legacy, shaping discussions of justice and reconciliation even today. In the end, how we choose to confront our past reflects not only on our history, but also on our present and future paths. Hopefully, it inspires contemplation and dialogue about the complexities of justice, forgiveness, and rebuilding a nation. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing to be notified on future videos.